29.
Wow,
Good.
that's
really?
great.
All right.
Kylie,
11.
Good.
we'll get there one day. Maybe.
Maybe.
That'd be my first. Where's my Bible? See, life is difficult.
You already got it right.
Yeah. I started it. I didn't want to put any more on you this morning.
Wow.
Oh, my book, I didn't send my Bible. Let me see.
Okay, so good morning.
Good morning.
We're continuing to work through Hebrews 11 today. Today we will look at verses 13 through 19. And we've talked so far about Abel. We've talked about Enoch, talked about Noah, and we talked about Abraham. We're going to talk about Abraham again today in a different way in his faith, but last week we talked about how he had, and for those that might be watching this online, I had technical issues last week and I couldn't get the video uploaded, so there is no video for last week. So let me put that out there now. So, but anyway, so hopefully we won't have technical issues anymore. And so, but we talked last week about Abraham and how God told him to just go to this place that he would show him, and to just go, and didn't tell him where he was going or anything like that, but just go. And God tells us to do that in a lot of ways, because God doesn't show us the big picture as much as I personally would like if he would, but he doesn't. He doesn't show me what the end result's going to be. And so he just tells us to take the next step. And that's how we had to do, it's how we kind of have to do our walk with God, is we just take the next step when he's leading us to do something. So, and everything. So today we're gonna go through. We're gonna look at. It's gonna kind of recap. The author of Hebrews here is going to kind of recap what we've looked at so far in Hebrews 11. These people, and point out something from them, and then we are going to talk about Abraham again, but this time in a different way, in a story that we all know, and about the sacrifice that he was called to make. So, will you read 13 through 16, please?
13 through 16, the heavenly hope. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and the pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had came out, they would have had the opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them.
Okay. All right. So he starts out here saying, all these died in faith, not having received the promises. Okay. Have we received all the promises that God has for us? Or, huh?
Well, probably not.
We're pretty much in the same situation, because what's the big promise that everybody looks to as a Christian?
Heaven.
That's right, heaven, exactly. But we don't receive that until after we die, or unless the Lord comes back first.
Right.
So they took on faith. The only one who didn't have to die was Enoch, but we know that God just took him, and that would be cool. But it's a lot of people say that that's like the rapture and whatever, and I'm not getting into all that again. But we do, that God. So, but he walked with God. That's I would. if God took me like that, that would be great. But that would be what I would want to be known for, is that he walked with God and then God just took him because he walked with God. God decided he wanted him there instead of here. And so, but so, yeah. So, but they had the promises. We talked about how God had promised Abraham that he would make his descendants more numerous than the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the beach. Beaches, the grains of sand in the world, basically. But he never saw that come to life. Abraham never saw that. He saw his son, and then he saw his grandchildren, and then I don't know how much of his great grandchildren he saw, because he was already well in age. Again, he was 100 years old when Isaac was born, and Sarah was 90. So, yeah. So I don't know how much he saw of the generations, but so he just had to believe that he had that faith. He had that faith, and he believed the promises of God. So, do we struggle sometimes to believe? Sometimes when we see in the Bible that God says he'll provide for us, take care of us all the time. Do we struggle with that when times are tough? When health is an issue, or finances, or we've lost our job, or finances, or we got just some huge bill comes in that we got to take care of, and whatever, and it's just, do we struggle? Do we struggle with the faith that God promised he will take care of us. He's never going to leave us or forsake us. And I'm not saying that we're going to have a huge abundance just because
You'll
God
always have what you need.
Right. Exactly. You'll always have what you need. And so, and do we hope in that? Do we hope in that God's going to take care of us?
Yeah, because a lot of times I say I hope and pray. So
yeah,
run them together
Yeah, that's a popular expression. Yeah. So, and they do kind of go together in a lot of ways. But you can hope for a lot of things not of the world. I mean, not of God, that are of the world too. So, but you can hope I'm going to go back and buy those other 2 pocketbooks, but
I don't really like those 2, but there's 2 on Facebook I'm really interested in. You brought it up.
need to get off of that devil's tool called Facebook. But yeah, so they didn't see it, but they knew. Okay, and then he promised Abraham that land that he led him to, that even though he didn't end up staying there right then, he ended up going to Egypt and different things. That he didn't end up staying there right then. That it would be his people's forever and ever, but that the people would walk through a hard time to begin with. He even told them that. God even told Abraham that the people would be, in a foreign land for 400 years, where they would not be treated well. And so, and we saw that. And then we saw that Moses, led them back out. And they went into we didn't look at Joshua and stuff like that, where they went into the land and got the land back. And so, Joshua, I like it, but it is a hard book because it is a lot of battles. And it's a lot of, they're going in and they're taking the land, and they're fighting with this city to take this city, and they're fighting with these people and fighting with those people. And it's, so, and unfortunately, they're still fighting over there.
Yeah.
So,
Very much so. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just from a human standpoint, I guess you say, to see what the TV news reporters, different ones, have to say. And once in a while, they revert back to the former names of these places.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, because it
Yeah.
Yeah.
triggers my mind to think, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So, and see, I'm one at this point. I pay very little attention to the news. 'Cause
Unless I
it's-
just say,
it's-
listen to this.
Yeah, I get all my news from her. So,
The news junkie.
yeah, yeah, she is seriously a news junkie. I mean, it scrolls across, pops up on her phone all the time. She's just like, "What is that?" And look at my phone and see what that is. It's either somebody trying to sell you something, or it's news. And 9 times out of 10, I'm right. So
You and that
but
one.
but yeah. So, but they understood, and one thing that these guys understood, and what's being said here is they understood that they were only here for a short time. And we're only here for a short time. This isn't our home either.
We're here for a lot shorter time than these guys were.
Oh, yes, it's true. We are.
I mean, 120, that's a long time.
Right. They understood that they were just visitors. And in the New Testament, it tells us that we're strangers. I think it describes us as strangers and aliens in this nation. So we're in this world, and not in this nation, but in this world as a whole. This is not our home. Not yet. Not yet. Now, when the new heaven and new earth come down in Revelation, and it's set up down here on earth, that'll be us. We'll be here, but it'll be paradise. It'll be the new. So, but right.
Before my mother died, she was like this. She would say in the morning, and she'd look kind of sad, and she'd say, "I prayed I wouldn't wake up here today."
Oh,
Yeah.
I said, "Don't say that.
Yeah.
Please don't say that."
yeah.
But that's exactly what she meant, and what
Yeah, exactly. She was
But-
longing for
but-
that promise.
I was very much the child in that
Oh, yeah.
situation as that was happening, because it's not easy.
Yeah, a lot of times we don't want to let go. So
But too, when our folks get older, especially when they get sick and stuff, that's what they start focusing on.
Mhm.
I just want to.
Right,
and
right,
they-
right, right, right,
Mhm.
right.
I remember Nicole would be, I can't wait to get my new body.
Mhm.
I've done destroyed this one. I can't wait to get my new body. So, and that was what she was, that was her hope. That was her longing, because Paul talks in Romans about that and a couple other places that we'll have new bodies. And she was, and they'll be perfect bodies. They won't break down like the ones we have now, and everything. And so, and sorry, Kylie, there'll be no need for nurses and doctors and stuff there. But yeah. So, but probably, Mandy, there'll be no need for hairdressers, because the hair probably won't grow, more. So, but
I
yeah.
hope there's
So,
no need for escrow on the mortgage.
yeah.
I really do.
Well, I don't think they'll be dead. So I don't think they'll be dead in heaven. So,
And
but-
he's prepared our home, so it's not.
he has, right, exactly. So, but yeah, but that was the hope that she had. And so, yeah, a lot of people, as time goes on and they're sicker and whatever, that's what they really cling to. And that's what these people cling to. But are you willing to make sacrifices here that are temporary for the long-term gain down the road? Are you willing to surrender your life? Now, it sounds like a big thing, surrendering your whole life to follow what God leads you, and to only want to do the things that God wants you to do. It sounds like a huge deal, but if you break it down and look at it and make it a day by day,
Mhm.
even minute by minute, hour by hour thing, trying to surrender your life, then it makes it easier. Okay. Are you willing to live your life the way that God wants you, so that you have the promise of the future?
Here's that's kind of what I was just, my book, my Bible has like these little commentaries and stuff. And that's what I was just highlighting. It's talking about, these men were not famous or highly exalted by the masses of people in their day, but they all had good testimony and played a vital role in God's unfolding plan. As a whole, they displayed a good testimony, a righteous witness, useful gifts, godly fear, absolute obedience, unfailing hope, and patient endurance.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, and they did. And so, one commentary I was working out of this week, Lewis H. Evans, in his commentary on Hebrews, points out that these verses are talking about the willingness of the people to sacrifice short-term gain for the greater satisfaction of the promise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do we take heart in the promise that when things aren't going well here, when we sacrifice something here, we don't get to have that $5 million house. We don't get to have those really, really nice, expensive luxury cars that we might want because we're sacrificing for Christ, and we're, or just not even trying to go extravagant, but sometimes you're struggling just to make ends meet. Sometimes you're struggling to just put food on the table. Sometimes you're struggling to just stay healthy, pay the doctor bills and to just stay healthy and things like that. I mean, so, you have that, and, are we willing to, and so you have to make choices. Am I going to go do this event, go to this play or this ball game, or go do this shopping, or am I gonna take care of this, because I need to, it's a sacrifice, but the long-term gain is for your good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we should all be willing to do that in our lives. We should all be willing to surrender and to give ourselves over daily for that. Okay, so and God asks us to give up a portion of the promise that we have now for the greater promise that's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we give up a portion of what we would, or the world would call the good life, the great life, whatever. But, if our values are aligned with God, then our lives, if our families are happy, are healthy and growing and happy, and everybody's good and provided for, then how much more do we really need? I mean, we can want all day long. I'm going to say we can want all we want, but that's really not a good statement. We can want all day long, but, wants are a whole lot different than needs. So, okay. So, okay. Questions about that section? Thoughts, comments, real quick before we move on to the next? Oh, okay. So bottom line, and one thing that he did say is, he said in verse 16, therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the promise we all have. And God is not ashamed to call them his God.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Jesus spoke and said, if you deny me before man, I will deny you before my Father.
Mm-hmm.
And so, don't be ashamed of me here, and I won't be ashamed of you there, kind of thing. And so, but, okay. All right, 17 through 19, please.
All right, mine's called The Faith of the Patriarchs, and it's 17 through 22.
I want to stop
Okay.
at 19.
Okay.
Yep.
By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promise offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, and Isaac your seed shall be called, concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative speech.
Right. Okay.
Excuse me.
So if we look back, back in Genesis, when we are seeing Abraham, if you want to turn there, we'll be in Genesis. That's Deuteronomy. That is not it. That is Numbers. That's the wrong bookmark. Okay, here we go. We'll be looking at Genesis 18, and we a lot of us probably know the story. So, but we ended last time with we were in Genesis 11, I believe. Yeah. Or no, Genesis 12. We were in Genesis 12 where Abram got these promises. Abraham got these promises and everything. And then he changed his name and he promised that he would make it, they would have. And then in Genesis 13, we're not going to read it, but, no, was it 13? No. No, not 13. My bad. But he comes back, and the Lord comes back and speaks with Abraham again, changes his name, changes Sarah's name, and then says, when I visit you this time next year, you will have a child. And Sarah actually laughed at him. And it wasn't, can't get my pages apart. There we go. But yeah, he said that they would, maybe that's 18. That's what we want to. Yeah, 18. 18 is where he promised. That's what it is. And we're going to look at 22 today. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm a little confused. If I look at my notes, I could, I could be on pace here. But yeah, 18, he comes in and says that Isaac is the son of promise. And that through Isaac, that there will be so many descendants and everything. And at that point, Abraham's already gone and tried to, Sarah and Abraham have already tried to go ahead and create their own situation with Hagar and Ishmael and all this. And so Abraham pleads that Ishmael would be accepted as the son of promise, but God says no, that's not his plan. And so 18 talks about, and that's where Sarah ends up laughing at him because she's like, I'm 90. I'm past my childbearing years, and now you're telling me I'm going to have a child. And so, but a year later, we see, and yes, Isaac is born. Everything's good. Okay. And so then time goes on. I don't know exactly how much time it is, but in 22, in Genesis 22, where again, if I looked at my notes, I would know where I want to be. So, can you do 1 through 19?
In 22?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 through 19.
Yeah.
And it came to pass that after these that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his younger men with him and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of God, which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, the lad, and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. Then he said, Look at the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb of the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on that lad or do anything to him. For I now know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of this place, The Lord Will Provide. As it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Blessings I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gates of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went back together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba.
Okay. All right. We're all probably pretty familiar with this story, right? Okay. I'm sure we've heard hundreds of sermons on it over the years, or at least a few, several. God is asking him to sacrifice his son. Now, he has Ishmael, but he's asking him to sacrifice Isaac, the one that he's promised to carry on the line through. If you're Abraham, what's going through your mind?
What the world?
What did you say?
What in the world?
Right, how's this gonna work? Because
Yeah.
his mind was human and
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So,
you can't do both.
what would you think if God asked you to sacrifice Easton? No?
No, and that's what it's not something I want to think about.
It would be.
Because I wouldn't want to say I would turn my back on God and I wouldn't want to. I just pray He would never ask me to do that.
It had to take tremendous faith. Because I'm like Kylie, and I don't even have children, but I could imagine I would be like, I don't know about this one now.
Yeah.
So that took some more faith just to load them up and head to the mountain.
Even on the days when mine frustrates me to no end, I still wouldn't want to do it.
Exactly.
But what's God really doing here? Is God really asking him?
Abraham's going to obey him.
Okay. Why?
I was just with no means in front of this.
Because is Abraham the one that he's going to make all these descendants of all this land?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, Kylie, I want to say, or was it you, maybe one of y'all, I want to say these things, but I'm not really sure. Just because I'm married to
But-
Bruce, I'm not really sure.
But why would he ask?
Well, God sacrificed his only son.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to get to that. But why
Somebody help me.
okay. All right, I'll bail you out on this, okay? No, I'll just bail you out on this because we're getting time here. So God wanted to be sure that Abraham, after that long-awaited child was born, was not going to put him in a place higher than where God should be in his life.
Next answer.
Yeah, okay.
I never got there.
Well, that's tempting. Some people do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people do. I mean,
We see that sometimes
Yeah.
around us more than once.
yeah, especially with sons. And I'm sure Justin,
Daughters. Yeah.
well, right, because there's 3 girls and then Easton. And so I know Justin had to be ecstatic when he finally got some testosterone in the house with him, But I mean, so yeah. and stuff. And that's a lot of people put their kids above everything else in their life. And if we put any member of our family, our spouse, our children, our parents, yes, we have to take care of them. Yes, we have to help them. Yes, we have to look after them. Huh?
Love them.
Love them. We have to, right, But if you put any of them above God,
Right.
then you've got your priorities out of order. And so he was wanting to be sure, okay, that Abraham wasn't getting his priorities out of order, because he knew, oh yeah, God's going to give me all these descendants through Isaac. Well, now he's going to, okay. Now the writer of Hebrews says that Abraham believed, and even in the passage here, he tells Isaac, God will provide. Because Isaac is smart. So Isaac's a teenager probably at this point, maybe young adult, 20s, something like that, or whatever. Obviously, he hasn't had any descendants yet because, but still, so he's old enough to carry the wood, and he's old enough to reason. He's seen sacrifices before. Where's the lamb?
Mm-hmm.
We don't got a lamb. Dad, we don't got a lamb. What are we going to sacrifice? We're going up this mountain. I don't want to have to come back and get the lamb, And
Yeah.
Abraham says God will provide. Now, a lot of people say that he just thinks, Abraham thinks that he's going to do what he did and that he will provide something at the last minute, like he did, like God did. And that's definitely a possibility. It could be in Abraham's mind. But do you think Abraham, and the writer of Hebrews says that Abraham had enough faith to think that even if it meant raising Isaac back from the dead after he sacrificed him, that God would have done it to keep the promise alive, because he had that much faith in the promise. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, for me, I would not have looked forward to the time when Isaac went home and told his mother that Dad just about killed him, or did kill him up there on the mountain, and
Right.
that God brought him back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Did he tell Sarah before he did it what was going on, or did he not tell her? Because it was a 3 days journey to even get to the point where they left the servants, and then they went up the mountain. So it's like a 4 or 5
Maybe
days
he
journey.
told her that God had him a journey for him.
Maybe. And they were going to go do a
Yes.
sacrifice, and he didn't say what the
You didn't
sacrifice
even
is
have to
going to
say
be.
that.
Well, he might not have, but right. And this was a time where,
Because if she's like me, you know what that would have led into. What? Wow.
well, yeah, exactly. But, but again, the culture and stuff, women weren't allowed to ask. I mean, I'm sure in husband and wife situation that the wives actually had more voice than like in government and social settings and all that stuff. But yeah, so, and then look at the picture here. Isaac is carrying the wood
Mhm.
for his
Own sacrifice.
sacrifice. Who carried his cross up the hill
Jesus.
to his death, knowing what was coming? The only difference is that Isaac didn't realize that he was the one that was going to be on the altar till his father put him there. Tied him up and put him on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so which kind of leads me to believe, I bet he was a teenager, because, Isaac's over 100. I mean, Abraham's over 100 at this point. At 20 years old, if Abraham was,
teenager,
he would have fought. He could have
Yeah.
fought. And I don't know that Isaac, Abraham, but, I don't know.
I'm thinking
So,
he's either an really obedient child or a younger child.
yeah, but obviously able enough to carry the wood and know
Yeah.
enough of what's going on. So, but in any case, yes. So this is seriously a picture of the sacrifice that Christ made, because Christ had to carry his cross, his wood, to his own sacrifice, his own execution. And he did it willingly, just as Isaac did it willingly. Doesn't say that Isaac fought him when his father tried to tie him up and put him on the altar. He trusted his dad. I don't know how much trust he had after that, but or he had a lot more trust because he did see that God provided. God did provide and took care of him. And so, okay. So he had that level of commitment, and he figuratively, because he was on the altar and he even raised a knife, figuratively he sacrificed Isaac in his mind and in his heart. He sacrificed Isaac, but he just didn't actually have to physically kill him. And then he was raised back to him. So we will wrap it up there. But does that make things clear as mud?
Not too muddy.
Not too muddy? No? Okay.
Not too muddy.
All right.
Last week was extremely muddy.
So, okay.